What's going on, YouTube? And welcome to episode 5 of my Starship Evo builds of the U.S.S. Revengeance. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And I just want to say I hope everybody had a happy and safe holiday. And I'm excited to jump right back into our daily episodes during the week. And we have about a 25-minute video we're going to be focusing on really trying to get the frame and the last bits of the ship framed out and then start filling it in. We're going to get the nacelles, or excuse me, the pylons that we wire framed out in the last episode. We're going to fill those in, and then we're going to wire frame out our actual nacelles, and then we'll actually fill in the top half of our saucer section. Got about a 25-minute video, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. You can see I've already got my splitter in place on my ship to help me out a little bit, so this way I can build a little bit smarter on Starship Evo. Still love that feature. Definitely makes building on here a lot easier. And you can see that we're right underneath the pylons, and I'm using the half slope just to make this completely flat, and I'm just going up to every single cut, and we're just going to do this all the way across. Looking pretty good. Got a couple more rows to fill up here. I'm actually really excited. So far, the U.S.S. Revengeance has shown up on the Steam Workshop twice in the top downloads. And I just want to thank everybody that's taken the time to check out my build. I hope you enjoyed it. And I've actually won 2 rare unicorn awards for this build, so thank you again for that. The community on Starship Evo has been incredibly welcoming, and I've joined the Discord and I've been chatting up with some people on there, asking questions here and there, and it's been surprisingly very responsive and supportive. Some people on there showed me how to do some pretty cool things. I'm looking forward into getting into that a little bit once we've moved out of the Revengeance. But there's a lot of cool things that I want to do. I've already got my next ship build lined up, but if there's any builds that you would like to see me do on Starship Evo, drop a comment in the comment section below. I'd definitely love to hear from you regarding what you would want to see me do. And if for whatever reason I don't get to your build right away, don't get discouraged, because you never know. I'm going to be doing this to build series / tutorial on Starship Evo indefinitely. So hopefully you all enjoy that, and there's some things you might want to see, so let me know. But now you can see that we're working on the upper side of the actual pylons, again with the slope. I'm just going all the way up. Now eventually we're going to come back. We're actually going to put a cut in the pylon. I guess you call it a support strut, but we won't be getting that today, but there's still quite a bit of detail that we have left to do. Even after this episode, we'll still have to fill in the engines. We're going to wireframe them out today, but after we're done with that, then we should be starting to get into the interior of the ship a little bit. There's still 1 or 2 things I think we got to do on the outside, but pretty happy with the progress that I've made on this build. And even the responses and views I've been getting have actually been more than what I was anticipating. So everybody that's been checking out my videos, thank you very much for that. And you're definitely the reasons why I've been keeping this tutorial series going. This was a really fun build to do, and this, believe it or not, was a person that commented in the comments section that made a suggestion that I should do something that I used to build in Legos when I was growing up. And it wasn't necessarily on Legos. One of the things I used to do, because my dad, when I was younger, well, still to this day, my parents got divorced at a young age. I only saw my dad on like every other weekend and Wednesdays. And he worked a lot. And usually on the weekends I with him, I'd sit at his office all day. So what he would do to keep me entertained, we'd go to Toys R Us and we'd go to the model section, and he'd buy me a model. And I'd sit there the whole weekend and I'd build the model out and paint it and all that stuff, and it would give me something to do. Well, after a while, when you're a kid, you break models pretty easily. So after a while, I had a treasure chest full of broken models. So what I really like to do is I would take my models and I would make makeshift versions of my own what I would think my own ships would be. And this really that suggestion that person gave me, to do something, that I used to do when I was a kid, made me think of that. I was like, man, I could do something like that on here. And so, I talked about this in episode 1, where I took Riker's ship that was seen in the end of Star Trek Picard, and I used that as a reference along with the Enterprise E, but mostly also the U.S.S. Vengeance. Um, I think all things considered, the ship came out pretty cool, and has a lot of cues from the Vengeance, but definitely has its own cues as well. And I think that's something that I want to keep doing. There's definitely some official Federation ships that I'm going to do. Like I said, I've already got my next build lined up and what I'm pretty certain I'm going to do on here next. Unless something else comes up or somebody gives me a suggestion that I just can't pass up. That's too good to pass up. But I've got a good idea what I want to do. But still, I want to do more Federation ships, but I would like to do some more mashups. So if there's any mashups maybe that you'd like to see me do, let me know in the comments section. I'd definitely love to hear from you. And you can see, going back and a little bit what we got going on here, I'm working on closing in the upper side of our hull, which I can tell you was a pain in the butt. It was a little difficult here to get this to line up right. And this is, again, just turning into a lining up game with the shapes to see what will line up and look the best. And so we can't go all the way out that far because otherwise we're hitting the hull. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to blend this in. Definitely use the triangle slope there. Now we're gonna use a regular slope. Maybe we can just kind of close this off here, and then we can use this corner widget. That looks pretty good. The only problem is now it's not going down at an angle with the block right behind it. Really like how that upper section right here came out with, like, it looks like almost like ribbing going along the upper hull, and it just I think it looks pretty cool. And something definitely unique. Not something you'd see on Federation ships. I have to repaint that, but we'll come back to that. And also at this point, one of the reasons why I undone the engines, because I was trying to figure out what type of engines I wanted to use. Ultimately, what I settled on for this ship, and there's actually even a fourth ship, but not one in specific. Pretty much any one of the ships that you saw from Section 31 from Star Trek Discovery. If you look at their engines, they're actually they're strikingly similar to the engines from the Constitution class refit. And I really liked how they came out. They looked very streamlined, appropriate to the era, kind of sort. I know you can make the argument, well, maybe that's about 10 years or so too early, but Section 31 would probably have that technology before the rest of Starfleet. So that would be the only reason where I would buy into it. Um, but as you can see from the screenshot, I think that all in all, this ship just looks so darn beautiful. I was really happy with how this thing came out. This was really a labor of love, and I spent hands down the most time on this build than any of the other builds that I've done on Starship Evo so far. Um, One of the recent additions that I just recently did on the ship is that it does now, in fact, have warp drive capability. So if you want to go to warp, you can do that on this ship, which is pretty cool. They're really getting to a point where they're starting to add some really cool stuff to this game. It looks like they've, from what I can see, they've even updated the graphics of like the universe and like the background and stuff, and it looks really good. But they need to. I'd really like to see them get to a point where they have planets added in the galaxy that you can actually go into the atmosphere, land on them, and start building and finding unique ecosystems to that planet, maybe alien species, alien architecture, buildings, and all that stuff. That would be cool. And then being able to interact with them, that's something I really want in this game. And then a little bit more variety of different types of vehicles that you can build, like submersibles would be top of my list right there with mechs. And if they really just wanted to make my day, they can add in a feature to where you can customize your own uniforms. I mean, they've already got the option where you can make your own weapons. I don't see any reason why they can't make it to where you can make your own uniforms. Um, but still, regardless, I mean, I'm really happy with just the warp drive alone is very cool, and then like it's super super easy to set it up. You literally just have to have um, warp drive in your ship. I don't even believe it has to be connected. Now you have to have the galaxy map that has to be hooked up to your computer. But I did learn something going into warp that you have to have a lot of warp capacity. I forget what the widget is that, or the box is actually called for the warp drive, the capacitor thing. But I pretty much had to fill the majority of my engines up with this block just to get it to where I could go a couple of light years out. Um, I'm actually going to try to do a test over the course of this week to see what the maximum distance is on this ship. Um, but I kind of like that. I like that they have it to where, it's just not unlimited travel and that you have, restriction based off of what your warp yield is. And I think that's pretty cool. It keeps, even though this game is very simple, it still has a sense of realism to it in that regard, which I can definitely appreciate. But taking the time to make it where it's not super complicated to figure it out. Definitely appreciate that. But still, if they can simplify the yokes and the sequences, that would be fantastic. I still feel like doing certain things, like I've talked about it, where I saw somebody that they had an actual working elevator, and I downloaded it, but I haven't gotten a chance to actually look at it yet. I really do, because I want to figure out how they made it, because I really want to incorporate that into some of my future Federation builds I'm going to be doing on Starship Evo. It's something I feel that I need in order to make that work. But I'm certain at this point that that was no easy task to get it to work. So I'm not a fanboy of Starship Evo. I do love this. Excuse me. I do love this game, but I will call out things that I see that they need to change, in hopes that they'll make it better. I have a feeling that they will, based on what I've seen and the progress that they've made on this game. If you look up Sky Wanderers, what Starship Evo used to be, and look at to what it is now, I mean, they really have um, made some respectable leaps and bounds in their development. I think there's other studios out there that I've played their early access games, and they never get there. And then in some cases, like I don't know if anybody has ever played The Forest, and this could be controversial. This is just my opinion, but I feel like with all the updates, they ruined that game. When they started The Forest out, I feel like it was so good. With they had it going like the cannibals, they were interactive. The bigger you got, the more of a threat you were. And as they went with updates and people giving their feedback, they uh, made it easy to the point that you build your base up and they run away. And like they just literally dropped the ball with it. Or like Ark Survival Evolved. That's another game that I play, and I host my own servers for that. But even with Ark, like as time went on, like that game has this lingering bugs. They never fully fixed it. Um, but I don't know if Ark would be a good example, because Ark was, despite all the issues that Ark has, I think they've done Wildcard has done a fantastic job with actually fleshing the game out and coming out with something pretty unique. But still, I mean, they've got some hurdles to climb as far as some of the bugs that they have. But you're going to get that with a game like this. When you think about it, whether it's Starship Evo or like Ark, they're not the same, but they're similar in the sense that you can tell that this is going to be going towards a um, survival mode direction. And I'm sure it's no easy task in designing these games and getting them to run very well. But from what I've seen from this developer, the way that he's worked in with the render and physically only having it to where the items that you're looking at are currently rendered in, I think that definitely helps. And some of the builds that I've seen on here are just absolutely massive. And even this build right here, I mean, the Revengeance is a small ship. It's not big by any means. So I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even think giving it the status that I had, making it a heavy cruiser, would be accurate. I think that it would be might just be more appropriate to call this thing just a light battle cruiser or a super light battle cruiser because of the size of it. You know, it does dwarf my NX-01, but the NX-01 isn't a very big build either. So you can see I'm just wireframing out our engines, trying to get an idea of a shape here. And this is something I highly, highly recommend you do for your builds. You can see that I've used this technique for my entire build from beginning to end. I mean, you're going to have to wireframe it out anyway to build it out, but this is a great way doing it in a conservative way, doing it piece by piece, zooming out, taking a look at it, seeing how the proportions look in your ship. Is it the right length? Do we need to add a couple more feet on it? Because looking at it, the stance that this ship has right now has a very aggressive stance to it, kind of like leaning forward. Um, So we want to. I think we don't want it to where the engines are too short because what's going to happen, since it's got such uh, a forward position, aggressive posture, I guess you could say, we don't want to make the engines stubby or anything like that. So we definitely need to make sure that they've got some length to them. Now, the way I'm going to be building out this lower side is going to be the same technique that I used um, coming off of upper side and lower side of the lower hull, but I need to actually delete these and go back to where the pylons meet the ship nacelle. In other words, the engine, because the curve to get that right. I mean, might need to start it from there because starting it from back here, the problem is that I don't think I'm clearing enough space to really get enough thickness in it, but making it not too thick, if that makes sense. But let's try to throw these down and see how it looks. If it looks bad, you can always change it. I'm just bringing that out as long as it'll let me. And then we do a regular block and then back to the slope and then repeat the same process again. We're pretty much going to take this all the way down to the pylon and see, and that's why we need to start from the pylon right there because doing it from right there, it's just way too skinny. So starting it from down here, this is really the way to go. So it's not a big deal. We will just have to delete what we just added. A little bit of a learning experience, but sometimes it's just what you got to do when you're doing a ship like this from scratch. There's going to be a couple of discrepancies and few changes that you got to make. But I don't know. I really dig one of my favorite features on this ship is actually the pylons and the ship nacelles. There's something old school about it because I kind of uh, definitely like I looked at the Vengeance because the Vengeance, the pylons, they're pretty much shaped in the same way, and they even have the cut going through them. Or no, I don't believe they do have a cut going through them, but they have a very similar shape and had a very TOS look to them, and that was something like I can incorporate that into this. I think that'll look good, but having these engines on. With them leaning forward, I think like it's just so appropriate to this whole design of the ship because like it pretty much the whole thing has like that lean forward look to it. I don't know if I should go out one more. or just call it a day right here. Best thing to do, let's get rid of the axis first, is just zoom out and take a look at it. If it doesn't look right, we can always add a little bit, a few more blocks to it just to thicken it up. But I think we're looking pretty good. One thing we could do too is instead of having the maximum length on our, I think we're gonna count out and we're gonna go out to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're gonna count to 7, I believe. And we're gonna go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do that. Cutting off a couple of blocks right there. I think that's the curve will be a little bit nicer now, and it's we're not going to have so much space between the top part and the bottom part of the engine by the time we get to the back of it. It's going to have that nice slope underneath where that we really need to try to pull off. All right, we're looking good. The only downside to that now is now it's that would be too short. So maybe if we do 7, 8, 9, maybe that might be the way to go. Try 10. I don't like that. I think 10 is what I settle on. It's either 10 or 11. But we definitely, I think the main goal here is to have a slope that looks good, but it definitely needs to clear the tip of the lower hull and be a bit longer than it. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is the backside of our ship is just going to look way too um, stubby, and it'll actually look too front heavy. Even though that doesn't technically matter, you know, because we're in a weightless setting, but still, I think it needs to have a little bit of length to it. That we might be able to get away with. We'll do one more. Or count out to 10. We're gonna go up one block and then we'll fill in this hole that we just made. Now let's zoom out and take a look at that and see what she looks like. But I think we might have that we might have it right there. And that's it. The U.S.S. Revengeance is finally starting to take some full shape here in a very short period of time. And again, that's just a testament to the building mechanics on here. If didn't have this split option that's building the other engine for me and everything else that I'm doing on the other side for me, we'd definitely be going up to probably episode 10 before we got to this point. So we're literally eliminating half of our work yield just by doing this. Now we're going to add a layer on each side of our outline. I think we're going to do this so we can start to prep out to make our engines 3D. You can see I'm using individual blocks, and they don't really have a choice here on going up on the curve, but the reason I'm doing that in the front is because I know that I'm going to be doing some heavy editing here in the front. Just like I'm doing right now, we're going to be making a cut in the middle. This is where it's going to have like part of the warp engine somewhat exposed with that blue glow in the front. So now you can see why I did that. So just make it a little bit easier to edit without having to replace sections. And now we're going to use the slope and smoothen this out. Let's take a look at that. She's looking really good. Very happy with how these engines came out. I'm actually very happy with how this whole ship came out. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to come out like this streamlined or anything. But I mean, it's I've been building ships on here for 10 years, so I mean, that definitely, not on Starship Evo, but on Minecraft. So I've definitely have experience with building on these block games. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've gotten quite a bit done. And I'm looking forward to hopping into next week's episode, really get this going, finish up the outside and get on the interior. There's so much cool stuff to go over. But yeah, I definitely think that's going to wrap this one up. I just want to thank everybody for tuning into today's episode. And if you haven't, please help me out. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below. Let me know what you thought about this video. If there's any stuff that you want to see me build, drop a comment. If you have any questions, I'm usually pretty responsive in the comments section. And also, in fact, if you did enjoy this video, you can also catch my new Starship Evo builds on Mondays. And don't forget, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes Tuesdays through Fridays. Right now, we're current season, brand new season on the U.S.S. Cerritos on Minecraft, so definitely check that out tomorrow. I'm looking forward to getting right back into that after the holiday break. But anyway, I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you on the next video.